Hello, everybody. Welcome. Got a funky little curly piece of hair there. Welcome. I am Kari the Mortician, and this is Coffee with Kari. I don't always have coffee, but today I do. Look at this mug. I love it. It's my favorite mug right now. I don't know why. So this is where you get to ask me basically anything you want to about the funeral business, about cemeteries, caskets, cremation, whatever it is you want to throw my way. Good morning, Damien. And so we haven't done one of these in a while. I've been kind of just focusing on life a little bit and trying to figure out some stuff. And so I haven't done one of these. I was like, today is the day. Good morning, everyone. Hello. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done one, Caleb. So you haven't missed any. Gotta just throw out a little bit to you guys. Got these candles in the mail the other day from a viewer because she thinks that Kari's candles or candles with Kari or something would be awesome. And they smell so good. This one's citronella. So thank you for sending these. I had another guy who retired from the county morgue in LA. So can you imagine what the county morgue in LA is like? So he sent me some mugs for my mug collection. And then he sent me one, which no one else is going to be able to get this one. This was for a doctor that had worked at the morgue. And so everybody that was on staff when he retired got these mugs. So he shared this mug with me. So I love coffee mugs. Thank you guys. So yeah, I've been just filming. I've been filming some 2 minutes. And like I said, I haven't been in my office much. It's summer. The girls are off school. And so my work from home days are now kind of mom days. And I'm trying to get some things in. Got some videos I'm going to post on the Ick Factor channel this next week. Got 2 over there that are just kind of funsy videos. So when you like to check out my funsy side, check those out. And I talked, oh my gosh, the other day I found this book and I did a little Instagram live quick. It's called The Complete Book of Etiquette. I laughed so hard. This is from the 50s. And it basically tells, like, how can you throw a dinner party without a maid? Like, oh, a guest. Like, who could do such a thing? It has a section on yachting because we all yacht much. But just like, how do you propose? Gifts before the engagement. I just want to read it with like a snooty kind of accenty kind of do thing. So there is a section on funerals and what they think etiquette for funerals. I haven't read it yet. I kind of want to read it. I'll probably do a live funeral etiquette video because this is just too good. And I kind of like reading in a funny voice. So that'll be coming soon too. So, Jim, yep, that was a video with Josh. So Josh is my boyfriend, which it's funny because I was just moving some stuff and I was like, the last year when you guys didn't know he existed, this picture sits behind my computer. So when I'm doing videos, like he's kind of staring at me. Yeah, so that's who that is. Oh, thank you. That's probably like Hobby Lobby or something. My son's friend drowned and was in Lake Erie for 3 days. It was a closed casket. Yeah, there's so many variables with being submerged in water. The body does take on water, but there's also animal activity that can happen, getting hit by a boat, hitting the rocks, different things that can happen under the water and while the person is in the water. It's really a hard situation. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, Megan, we are funky symbol, ask Megan. We are. He did a tour. He got called down to Georgia early, but he went and did the Blue Ridge Witch. he did a little video about that, having some issues with some of his video clips. So trying to get those fixed. Thankfully, Drew, who has followed me for a while and stuff, has been helping me try to get those so I can edit that video and get it posted. Yep, and we have definitely lots of videos coming up. Lots of videos. Need to record with Beer with the Boys soon, do a Victims of Crime and do some of our fun Beer with the Boys ones. And yeah, so many coming up that I need to have time to film and then edit, but a lot of it's just the time right now. So let's dive into some questions. On one of my last videos, we talked about pacemakers and defibrillators, and Betty, who is a nurse and did cardiac monitoring for 15 years, sent me this information because we were questioning about, turning off and if defibrillators needed to be turned off and all this stuff. She said, we occasionally receive calls from facilities with a patient trying to die and being shocked by the defibrillator over and over. Because we said, well, if someone has a do not resuscitate, but they have a pacemaker or defibrillator, what happens? Like, how do you turn it off to allow them to die? The family is in great distress since they were watching their loved one pass and not getting a peaceful passing. The staff would call them since they had our number to do monthly checks, and they would come in. The hospital or other facility where the patient resides needs to contact the device manufacturer for assistance to deactivate the device so the person can pass. They can die. Somebody can come to the facility, turn it off, and allow the person to die more peacefully. So that is a thing. So thank you, Betty, for that information, because I never really thought about that until someone asked that question. JW signed up for a tour of the St. Louis County Medical Examiner's office this next week. How does that work? Do they put up a thing? Hey, who wants a tour? For real? If a family gives you deodorant for a loved one, do you actually put it on? What if they are already dressed? I have never in 20 years of being licensed had someone bring deodorant because it's not necessary. People will bring body spray or cologne and stuff. I've honestly never had anybody bring deodorant. Who is Dr. Mike? I don't know who Dr. Mike is. Go tell Dr. Mike to reach out to me too if you know who Dr. Mike is. What do people who work in the morgue do? It just depends. They could be people who assist with the autopsies, dieners, or people who are autopsy assistants. They could be people who just move around the bodies, inventory the bodies, help do pickups, removals. They might just work the night shift when bodies get delivered. So different things like that, maybe. Of course, Nancy. I'm glad we got an answer from Betty. What is the most odd thing a family has given you to put on someone? I don't know if I've had anything that's odd. Lingerie. We've had grandma buried in a negligee. Wedding dresses, prom dresses, things that have very minimal coverage, which are hard, but nothing too super wacky. Being interred in a mausoleum, head, feet, or feet first. It depends on the mausoleum. They have their own way of doing it at each of them. There's not a universal way to bury there. Have you or anyone you know in the business ever caught anything from a deceased person you've cared for? Kind of going, the first thing that pops to mind is COVID. It was always a big, we didn't know if anybody was catching it from the deceased or not because it was so much exposure everywhere. You can't pinpoint if that's where your exposure was. You can catch different things. C. diff was one of the not scary, but things that I take super extreme precautions. I don't want it. And so that is something you can definitely catch. I do not know anybody who's gotten AIDS from a deceased or, something of that nature, but you can definitely catch things from deceased. Okay, Leo, I will have to check it out. Have you ever seen a body or work on one like the kids from Uvalde, the way they ended up being destroyed? I have not cared for anybody that has had injuries from a gun like that. I've had people with multiple bullet wounds, but not from that type of a weapon. So I don't know if that looks different. I don't know. And so, yeah, that's kind of a question, is because I haven't seen those deceased. I don't know what damage those do. Have you used the old casket, drapes, jack in box in homes? Can you do a history video? There is so much in the history of funeral directing that that could be talked about and could cover. So there's going to be areas I'm going to start delving into more over time. I have a list of at least 200 videos that are requested. And so getting to them is just a matter of time. I mean, we're 5 years in. I think this is we're ending year 5 here of doing this channel, which is crazy train to me. And so it's slow but sure, plug away at the videos, and over time, I want to start traveling a little bit to go do some of the videos at places that have said that they would love for me to come and to, highlight their businesses or look at their products or things like that to show you guys. So no, it's not, Josh. I'm actually, so this is what freelancing looks like. Right now I'm on call for a funeral home. I'm not working at the funeral home and on call, waiting to get called out, but I am on call if they need me. And so they've retained me essentially for a few days, that if they need another director to be called in because they have a bunch of people on vacation, then I will go in. Otherwise, I'm just on retainer for those days. So I'm up, I'm ready in comfier clothes where I can quick get on my work clothes if needed. It's like a fireman waiting. I don't have a pole though to go slide down to get to my car. Oh, can you touch base on natural burial state to state? In terms of what, Megan, I guess? I mean, that's 50 different laws and rules, but it's not even a state. It's by county, by township, by cemetery is where the breakdown is. It's not just a state thing. It's by what's allowed within each cemetery. So every cemetery cannot do natural type things. Vaults are required. They're not a state law here in Michigan, but cemeteries require them. So if you wanted to try and do no vault, if let's say it was a township cemetery, you would have to ahead of time petition at a township board meeting to have it voted on if you would be allowed to not use a vault or butter dish the vault or do something to be a little more natural. But that's not going to be something that is decided in a day or two to allow for a quick burial. These are things you want to plan ahead. So if that's something you want, plan ahead. Get the authorization ahead, get the okay ahead, have it all written out, have it all notarized, whatever, so that when the time comes, your family can implement that plan without having to jump through any more hoops, that it's already in place. So know your plan ahead, especially if you're going to do things like a more natural, a greener burial that maybe is not the most common in your area. And flameless cremation, the cost is the same as flame cremation. The only thing is you might have to travel further distance to have the cremation completed. So you might have a travel fee added in there. There's no push. When it comes to the funeral business, Makeup Maven is saying, is there any push for composting or aquamation in Michigan? We don't even have continuing ed hours here. This business is archaic, like old school here. Businesses handwriting checks still and using typewriters. This is archaic. And so any change in the business takes forever to get to anywhere. And you've got the really old school funeral directors who don't want change. So it's going to be a thing as the generations are turning over for them to be the ones that more so push. And they have to get ground underneath them to get the leverage to do the pushing. It just takes time. So right now, no, there's no even like scuttlebutt going on about it really that I've heard. Drew, what is the last sense of the 5 senses to go after one dies? Should I know this? Is this like a real thing that we are supposed to know? It's good trivia, but I have no idea. Hello in Pittsburgh. What do you do with dentures if you already embalmed an individual and the family brings them in later? Put them under the pillow. Just stick them under the pillow. Some people throw them away, but I think it's important if you're given something by the family to either use it or place it with the individual. So stick it under the pillow. That's where it goes. Why is a ground burial so expensive? You have a lot more components to it because you have the cemetery, you have all the cemetery fees, you have the opening and closing, the purchase, a casket and a vault, which you don't have with cremation. So you do have all these other components. That adds cost. You then also have handling of the body. You've got visitation, funeral, overseen by the funeral director. So it's not just, too simple. It's all these other components that add in there as well. When you worked in hospice, you were told that hearing is the last to go. You guys are welcome for my videos. I'm so glad to be able to do them. Yeah, the daughters are here. Yeah, dude. What?
They just joined my room.
Okay, stay out of each other's rooms. Spring, summer break.
Can we say hi?
You can say hi. Well, obviously, Lainey can't. You can say hi quick. Hurry up.
Hi.
So there's one. All right, go. I got to answer questions. Full on mom mode. There's number 2. They're all saying hi. Okay. All right, guys, some questions. As an embalmer, do you have to work behind a desk or is it mainly just working with the deceased and prepping them? If you're just doing prep, then you're going to be in the preparation area. You may have a little computer work to do, like embalming reports, things like that, but you're going to be on your feet a long day if your whole job is just preparation. Do you love being a mortician? I do. I like components of it. It depends on the day, what of it I like. At this point, kind of in my career, I like this. I like educating and I like the teaching. I love working with families and being able to meet their needs and carry them through those first days and do what I can for them. However, I do like this side of it at this stage in the game too. So it's nice to be able to have all these different components while being a mortician. So love it. Is the pay rate good? Like any business, it depends on the location. You can be, let's say, a doctor, and it's going to depend where you work, what your pay rate is. You can be anything. You can be a maintenance person. It's going to depend where you work, what your pay rate is. And you are in control of saying yes or no to that when you hire on. So it's not that there's an industry straight across. I know people who are wanting to pay $15 an hour for licensed funeral directors. And there's people who pay $40 an hour, or they have they're salaried and they get suit expense, dry cleaning, cell phone, a car, it depends. So you have to factor all those other things too into what you're making. It's not a salary, but it's a benefit to you within that job, that it's not a cost to you. So there's all these other areas. So that question I think is super weighted because it's so all over. How are the hours? Depends where you work. Once you receive your degree, how long do you apprentice for? Depends on the state. So you can do a 6-month apprenticeship if you have a bachelor's degree in some states, or a 1-year apprenticeship if you have an associate. So it just depends on your state. I've heard that if your family isn't in the funeral business, then making it within this field is almost impossible. Not true. Most people right now are first generation, majority women going into the business. So no, it's not that you can't make it. I will say the thing I think that stands in front of most people right now going into this business is their unwillingness to move. You've got one small town, there's one funeral home, there's one person that's hoping to work there for 40 years. There's no turnover rate of directors there. And if you plan, if you're from this little town, to go back to your little town, there's not going to be a job there for you. So you have to be mobile. Going into this, you have to understand you need to be mobile because there may not be a job right in your area, within an hour of your area. You may need to move to another state. There are so many job openings within this business right now. People are desperate for employees, but people are not willing to move. So go into this business with the open-mindedness that if I want a good position, I am probably going to need to move to it. There you go. Is it possible to be a freelance mortician? Hi, nice to meet you. I'm freelance. So yes, it is. What do you think motivates states to have different laws for burials and embalming? You would think, Dale's addiction, you would think that they would all be the same. That is kind of one of my big dreams. I think in my video with Caitlin Dottie, that was one of my dream things, is that there would be just nationwide rules and regulations and laws when it comes to all things funeral related. Because could you close that door, please? Yeah, please. All things funeral related, because it would be so much easier to understand if someone needs to go to that state, or if someone calls needing advice, you can give them advice because it's the same everywhere. It's just not the case. I mean, down to in Michigan, it's a law that to get death certificates, the first one has to be a certain price and the remainder are different prices. So you don't just go to the county clerk and each one's $10 or $20. The first one could be $15 and then $5 for each additional after. It just makes no sense. Why do that? Why can't death certificates just be the same darn price if you get one or if you get 20? Okay, they're $5 a piece. Great. It just makes no sense. So there's all these wacky little things that, yes, I would love if they could all be the same. But it's control, it's government, it's all of those things. I don't know that it's history so much. I think it's definitely changing in the times, different regions, different areas, more progressive areas. So I think that dictates a lot of that as well. We got some vault questions. I'm going to save those until Josh and I do a vault video here coming up. We've got a guy, David, is doing removals and things and just was sharing some of his stories. Today was my first police call, home removal for a gunshot suicide. At least used a handgun, not a shotgun, so it wasn't as bad as it feared. Saw my first bag open at the ME recently with the full Y incision. And he says, one thing I've noticed from doing removals is Americans need to eat a lot more salads and less pie. So, I mean, some of that is truth. We are a growing nation. Yeah, so let me dive into your questions. Yeah, Kent. So I live in Plainwell, Otsego area. Yes. So got a video going to do around here of a haunted, I'm going to debunk it, cemetery headstone thing. I know, no hat today. I had to get ready in case I have to go to the funeral home. Are there bigger urns for couples? Yes. So they're called companion urns. Most of the time, you're not going to be able to fit 2 people in a normal size urn. Even if grandma and grandpa are only 90 pounds, they're just little. Don't bank on that. It's not based on weight and all of that in terms of how much cremated remains. There's so many other factors. So do not plan that you're putting them in one urn together unless it's a companion urn. Can you talk to dead people? Well, you can talk. They're not going to respond really. After mass casualties, how does an embalmer process multiple decedents? What kind of extra help is necessary? It depends on how many we're talking. I mean, if let's say there's a car accident, 3 people die in the car accident. I mean, technically that's a mass casualty, I guess. There's no definitive definition on numbers of how many you need to be a mass casualty. So one at a time. It's just like embalming 7 individuals in a day that aren't connected at all. It's just these people all died in the same scenario. So, one at a time. You may call in, or, just like the mass shootings, your neighboring funeral directors, people from across the country, people jump in and try to help in those situations and come in and try and take some of the load off the funeral directors that are there local, especially in these smaller communities. So yeah, I talk to people I'm working on all the time. I prepared a lady whose lips were dreadfully dehydrated. The family insisted on makeup. The embalming made a little tiny improvement. What would you do in this situation? Oh, Cynthia. So this is one of the best trick tips. I mean, you can inject tissue filler. So tissue filler is this liquid that as soon as it hits moisture, it turns into this gelatinous material. So you can fill out features if someone's emaciated, gaunt looking. But you can do that with lips as well. However, if you take a humectant fluid and soak cotton in it and lay it on the lips, like not just a arterial that has some humectant in it, like a humectant based fluid, soak it in and let it sit. That's going to soak in and it's going to plump out and absorb that in the lips. So next time, do that. It's like they got a little bit of a lip filler. It's perfect. It works great. Christine, I'm going to eat the pie and the salad. I call that balance, girl. Balance. That's, I think because I was just joking about this, which you guys have to understand. We can't take everything we do too seriously at the funeral home because it would be a horrible living if we did that. But we see people who are so physically fit. They have eaten right. They have worked out. They have ran marathons. They are long distance bikers. And they still are going to die and can die of heart attacks and strokes and all the same things that 300-400 pound people can die of. And so it's finding the balance of joy in life. So to me, I'm like, well, I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to eat a pretty decent, meals and stuff, but I'm still going to have my glass of wine. I'm still going to have my cup of coffee once in a while. I have cut back on coffee a lot because my body's just it's not agreeing with me lately. Which is sad. It's sad. But it's find the balance. So you have to do what's good for you. But I've been, just kind of saying lately, I'm like, I'm just going to drink the glass of wine. I'm going to have the brownie once in a while. Like, they've got to find joy. If you're being miserable by trying to be this super health nut and everything, if that brings you joy, perfect. But if it makes you miserable, have the occasional goodness. Goodness, bring the joy to your life. Have you ever refused service, and are you allowed to do that based on what the person had done? Murderer, drunk driver. So I've talked about this before. Who you're caring for is the family. It's not so much the deceased. Like that family has lost somebody. They didn't choose what that person did. They didn't choose their sin. So even when Charles Manson died, he still had a family. And I understand that thinking that how is somebody like that even lovable? Why would you even want to take care of them? But goes back, there's a funeral director who said, everybody is a glimmer in somebody's eyes. Like when you're a kid, your parents look at you and, you were a glimmer in their eye at some point. There's somebody who loves people, everybody, despite their sins. So think about, I go back to Columbine. You have these 2 young boys who have families. Those families are grieving. They're in shock because of what their kids did. They are trying to process all of that, feeling more emotion than any of us can ever fathom. And imagine them trying to just get their children taken care of, having to do it privately, not getting support from their family, their coworkers, everybody, because of how chastised and looked down upon those boys are. That family's not getting support like they should if they had lost their child, just in a different way. Imagine them calling a funeral home trying to get that taken care of and people saying, I'm not helping you. Click. Like, it's our responsibility to take care of the family, not so much the person. When the Boston bombing happened, there were a whole bunch of funeral homes that turned away the family of the gentleman who had died, who had, done everything. And finally, one funeral home stepped up and said, yes, I will help you. And in their religion, there was a time sensitivity to it. And so this funeral director stepped in and said, yes, I will help you. I will help you take care of your loved one. It's not the sin of the family. It's the sin of the deceased. I've taken care of pedophiles. I've taken care of rapists. I've taken care of people who, have done horrible things, but that's not on the family. So that is the mentality that I go into it. And I know a lot of people go into it with, because that family still needs to care for somebody. They still need to go through what they need to go through. And adding one more harmful thing on their heart by turning them away, I can't even imagine doing that. So that's my nutshell answer for you. But yes, you can refuse service. But I think you're pretty crappy if you do in that scenario, I guess. But I'm not in that scenario, in certain ones. And so I don't know. You just never know what you're going to do, exactly what you're doing. Can you have a viewing with just the head? You theoretically could, and you could cover the rest of the casket and build with like towels and everything, body structure under, so it almost looks like there's a body. So you theoretically could. Donna. Yeah, so in that situation, let's talk about that for a second. 52 found dead or dying in a truck this week that they were trying to bring over the border, I believe is the story you're talking about. And they were transporting them in like a cargo truck, and a whole bunch of these people died. So the crappy part of that situation is those people are all going to probably go get autopsied. I'm going to guess they're going to be at the county morgue. So it's not so much the funeral homes, because that morgue now has 52 bodies or whatever at it, that they have to try and figure out who these people are, where their family are, which may not be in this country, and what's going to happen. And if it goes on long enough that they don't know, they're either John or Jane Doe's, or they can't contact family, nobody steps forward to take care of them, then the government, the state or the county then has to use financial resources and bury or cremate, whichever that county does, those individuals. So it's not going to roll to the funeral home. It's going back on the medical examiner or coroner's office, honestly, is where it's going to land. And then they at some point may have to ask funeral homes to help them facilitate burials and cremations at like no price, or minimal price to be able to go do those things. Yes, I might be wrong on some of this, but that is exactly how I see that playing out, especially if you have people you don't even know, maybe names or anything, or families that all died in that. If there was husbands and wives in that container and they died together and there's nobody to vouch for who each other was. And oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just people who maybe are going to lose their identity because of what they were trying to do and then never be really cared for by their family, and their family won't know what happened to them because we can't connect the dots. What a crazy mess. Yeah. People that died in a car in the heat, do they start decomposing faster? Do they smell different? I wouldn't say they would probably smell different. This is gonna be a hypothetical because I've never cared for anybody that died from heat in a car. I have had people that have died and then remained in a car. They, several truck drivers who, while they were sleeping overnight in their truck, cab, died of a heart attack, natural causes, and they were found a couple days later. And yes, that containment and depending on the heat level is going to advance decomposition pretty quickly. So you're going to get the softening of tissue, the separation between the layers of skin and tissue. And it gets it does get funky, but there's no specific smell to that. I wouldn't say there's any easier embalming based on age or anything. I've had 104-year-old people who have the most pristine arteries I've ever seen. And I've had 25-year-old people who have horrible arteries. So it's not based on age. Do you have the right to request seeing the body? Seeing the body. You have the right. It is your family member. The funeral home can decline and ask that you wait until they're done with their preparation, or for them to get the body ready to be brought up to an area. You do not have the right to go to the preparation room, to go to the space where other bodies are being stored. You do not have that right. You have the right to ask and for them to bring the person to a space in their time frame. They don't need to drop everything they're doing to do that for you if there's other factors involved. But yes, you have the right to see your loved one before embalming and then again after. Can you control how finely ground cremated remains are? I've heard that some cremulators can be adjusted. The family gets smaller pieces. Hey to Josh. Yes, you can. We've actually had people bring in cremated remains and say, hey, can you take this little crematory and have them ground down more because there's large chunks. We had some brought from, I can't remember, somewhere in Asia. I can't remember if it was Japan maybe. And they were very large chunks of bone. And so they wanted them not recognizable as bone, in that way. So we took and just recremulated them and reprocessed them. Hey, Peter. Has anyone asked to help with their past loved one? Yes, we've had people over the years. Sometimes there's an embalmer in the family or someone that, works around the deceased, or hairdressers is common, makeup, things like that, where they come in and they will help us do hair, makeup, dressing. Sometimes it's a cultural, like within the Mormon faith, they may come and help us get them dressed, and Muslims come in and they will do a washing and a wrapping, and they will come in and take care of their loved ones. So am I supposed to donate in order to get my question answered? No, you don't need to. I answered your question, Kevin, that I see posted. Oh, let me see. Let me answer a couple more from this. This one, Christine had sent me. These are all questions, kind of like more personal. What is the oldest person you've worked on and youngest? Oldest, I think 106 was where I've topped out. I know I had a 106-year-old person, but I think that is the oldest. And then youngest, I've just a few weeks gestation. So definitely quite the range. Do you believe in Bigfoot, mermaids, aliens? I like to think that there's maybe things that we don't know about, but I feel like somebody would have had a good, clear picture and a good, clear encounter by this point. With all of our technology and GoPros and, everything, somebody at this point should have had a clear video or something that's not like, oh, maybe. No, there should be maybe some definitive. But I don't know. I like to believe. It's fun. When one family member wants to clean and dress to disease, where there'll be a Oh, she just really took away that question. As freelance funeral director, have you gotten so busy you had to call from another? No. I just go and I cover if I need to. I did. Okay. Well, I will say one time I did have a insanely huge, like 1,600 person funeral for a young man, and one of the neighboring funeral directors who I knew actually just called and said, can we come? Because it was a small town. They knew we have like 2 part-time staff and me. They knew there was only going to be like 3 of us. And he said, can I come and assist you and bring some of my part-time staff? Because we know how big this is going to be. And he came, didn't charge anything, nothing, just donated himself and his staff to help because he knew it was going to be needed. That's what funeral directors do. Yeah, sometimes they're, not the best people, but we try to help each other because we know it's the family in the end that is getting the help. It's not just the other funeral director. So chill. Kari can't. Is it harder to embalm a really bad drug user? It doesn't even mean, so let's say you have someone that uses some kind of a drug one time. There are a lot of medications, even just over-the-counter medications prescription medications that you're taking legally that will counteract embalming fluid. It neutralizes it. So you can embalm somebody, they're nice and firm, go back a couple hours later, right? Loosey-goosey. It's like, it just negates the whole embalming process because that medication in the tissue just kills it. So that is a problem with any medication, not even a bad drug user. It's just any medication. Is when a family member or somebody on the outside wants to dress the deceased, is there a mortician in the room with them? Yes, there is. Having to be embalmed in order to be placed in a crypt. Generally, would that a state regulation or a cemetery rule? Cemetery rule. No, Kevin, that's okay. It's a good question. If you haven't been on lives, it's good to know. If you want your question answered, like Kari stops everything and answers your question, yes, you can do the little money button down at the bottom. So some people do that. Some people just want to, do that kind of thing. Are they flammable when they are embalmed? Not really, because there's so much moisture in the tissue and everything. I wouldn't say you're more highly flammable. It's not like filling a body with gasoline and then lighting them on fire or anything. All right, let's do 1 or 2 more questions. Do you feel the need to shower quickly after working on decomposed cases or just really yucky ones? Yes, after I embalm, I take a really good shower. Just regular embalming. It's not so much even the smell from the deceased, the embalming chemicals and everything. The formaldehyde is a gas. So it goes into gaseous form when it's exposed. And it's in my hair. It attaches. I can smell it everywhere, all over my clothing, my hair, my skin, my teeth especially. I feel like, yeah. So I always brush my teeth and take a good scrubby shower after I get home from embalming. No worries, Andrea. No, I'm glad you clarified that so I can answer it. Is it more difficult embalming a drowned person? I think every embalming has its own challenge. So it's hard to say, is it more difficult? It's going to definitely present some challenges. You got tissue being waterlogged and separating of the layers of tissue. You can only get so much preservation. So depending on not so much drowning, I'm thinking a person who's been underwater. Someone can drown and come right out of the water, and that water really isn't affected anything except their breathability during the drowning. But if the body is submerged or in water for an extended period of time, that's when you're getting the more complications for embalming. So not so much drowning, but if they're submerged in water. What's the kookiest or weirdest thing you've been asked to do? Put in the casket or do it a service? I don't know if there's any kooky, really anything. You know, like themed funerals are kind of fun when you do like, we had thousands of dollars of balloons before for funerals that they created this balloon garden around the person and everybody wore purple. And, you know, that to me, though, is a little fun. It changes up my day and it reflects on who the person was even more. People bring all sorts of things to put in caskets. I have a video on that. You could go reading through the comments because people share what they've put in caskets. That's kind of just a fun video to look at because it's like all over the board what people put in with deceased. Roger, I don't say hi and call out to every person, but hello. Does OSHA require access to a shower for embalming like eye wash station? They do not require a shower, just the eye wash station. How do you get a toxicology report? If toxicology was done, you would order that report from the medical examiner's office. And yes, you have to be, it does not automatically go to the family. Typically, depending on the county and everything, everybody's going to have their own protocol. But if you are in a next of kin, you can request a lot of times on their websites. You can go on, fill out the form and send it right to them, or just call and order one or email and order one. But that's how you go about it. A friend of mine and his coworker had to throw away their clothes following the removal of a highly decomposed person, even though they had put the white shoots over their clothing. Yeah, decomposed smell, especially if it's like sludge from doing, yeah, it sticks because it's a fat soluble in the air and it just sticks to everything. It's pretty bad. Thank you, Leo. Leo knows my answers. Nothing really surprises Kari. Everything's subjective. So yeah, when you ask questions about weird things or whatever, I don't see them, I guess, as maybe as being as weird as maybe you guys. So I need to start like sit and just make lists whenever I get them. So then I have good answers to that because nothing pops to mind because it's so all over the board with everything when people do that. Were you nervous about the aspiration when you first started? Have you ever made a mistake while aspirating? How did you fix that? You can pop through the back of the person if you are too aggressive. That can happen. I have not done it yet. I have hit the back, but it went to the table. So there might have been a little puncture hole, but not anything we needed to fix. People can puncture out the sides and things if people are too aggressive and they don't have enough control. Yes, the first time I watched an embalming, I didn't know about aspirating. And they're like, this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, you're going to stick that where and what are you doing? So Stephanie, who I was embalming with for the first time, she probably doesn't even remember it. I've just recently kind of reconnected with her, 20 some years later. But I remember it so vividly, that first one. But yeah, it took a while for me to get the feel of what it feels like in the abdomen when you're not seeing it. You have to make this mental picture basically when you're looking, okay, the heart's here, the other organs are here. This is what I need to hit. This is what I need to do. And you kind of just develop your own way of going through that routine as you're aspirating. You also have to have control and you have to be aggressive enough. So I've seen people who just, I can't even puncture. You got to pop it in there and just do it. It's just part of what you have to do. So you do learn over time and you do get a little more comfortable with it. But it does take a little getting used to. Wow. Naked HD has more cheap sex than Tinder. Look at that. All right. Do you think it's weird that family buried deceased with money or jewelry? When they do it for cultural or religious, where they bury them with money because it's your toll to the other, I think it's beautiful. I love those things that come with, ritual and routine and religion. I think that's all really cool. It is what it is. A jewelry, yeah, if they think the person would want it, I always say, like, you can't reverse it. You can always go back and like bury it in the ground with the person, but you can't go in and take it back out. So I always have people like, make sure you think about this. In a month from now, do you think you're going to want that? Or will you be okay with it being gone? And then they're like, oh, we should probably keep it just in case. So, so the smell, Nicole, it just depends on the level of the smell. A severely decomposed person, you might have to just throw stuff out. But going in, you're going to hopefully know the level of decomposition, and you may just wear some old clothing or something. But, do all the tricks. Do vinegar in the wash with it, or, use some stronger there's different things. Use tea tree oil. I use Melaleuca products, if you guys know what that is. And so that stuff is gold. But yeah, it just depends. Okay, one more question. Who wants to post the last question? I like it. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you. I'm sorry it's been a little hot minute since I've done one of these. So I'm going to edit 2 videos today. They are for the Ick Factor channel. The other day, I had a Clayton who is in a lot of these videos usually in terms of in the chats. He's followed me for years, and he wanted to do a psychic reading because he's a medium. And he knows me so well because I share so much with you guys. And so he said, hey, can I do a psychic reading for Josh? So we did a video, a Zoom video, and he did a psychic reading for Josh. So that video, I'm going to do a little edit to it and place it up on the Ick Factor YouTube channel. And I'm a little bit of a skeptic. I've never seen a medium give specifics enough that I went, whoa. And he said stuff about Josh I didn't know. I'd never heard of. Friends from high school that nobody would know things about. It was pretty, some of it was a little mind-blowing. So you can check that out later. I'm hoping to post it today to the Ick Factor channel. And if you don't subscribe here, click subscribe, go to Ick Factor and subscribe there if you want to see a little more of kind of our funsy, talking about life and kind of just living life and things. And we're doing some cemetery stuff there, and yeah, just a little all over the place, but it's kind of fun. So what is casket candy? So there's a casket company. This will be the last one. There's a casket company. I don't get casket candy, just to preface. There's a casket company, and every casket they deliver, they always have a little candy in it. Like a couple pieces of candy. I think Eileen Hollis talked about it on her TikTok because it's in her area. We don't have anybody that puts candy in caskets here. Very sad, because I would probably fight to go help the casket the casket guy when he came if there was candy in it. So it was, I blocked the first spot and a second one came through. So yeah, well, thank you guys. Appreciate you. Make sure to subscribe, click, share videos. That's the best way to kind of spread good information, is by spreading good information. Don't share bad stories. Just share the good ones. So thank you guys. Have a great Wednesday. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.